What are prediction markets? Today, we're digging into a rapidly expanding phenomenon in the world of gambling, the prediction market boom. You may have heard of them, but probably don't realize just how much they blur the line between financial trading and being straight up gambling. In fact, they're basically just reinventing where that line is. A prediction market is a platform where participants buy and sell contracts tied to the outcome of a future event. Yes, no questions like, will X happen? These can be about elections, the weather, sports, policy outcomes. Will it rain tomorrow? Will Obama come back and run for a third term? Now, why should people working in gambling addiction awareness, like counselors, clinicians, and people in recovery from gambling addiction, care about this? Because these markets are evolving in ways that make them far more accessible and way more risky, especially for younger people, people who self-excluded from gambling, and those who are trying to stop gambling. In this video, we're going to look at how prediction markets are growing, why they pose a unique risk, where regulation is failing, and what we have to do about it. The growth of prediction markets has been absolutely explosive. These platforms are basically being framed as the next big thing in entertainment, finance, and of course, gambling. For example, platforms like Kalshi, a US-based prediction market exchange, have somehow figured out how to bypass the blocks that I've put on ads for this channel and have snuck through to advertise on my videos a few times now, like a little weasel. Well, yeah, they're offering contracts on everything from elections to sports to policy outcomes to who's gonna win Dancing with the Stars. And the regulation, if you want to be generous enough to call it that, is trailing behind, and these markets are taking advantage of it. The very nature of these markets, because of how they are defined legally, means that they can be marketed more like trading apps or brokerage accounts than classic sports books. And that makes them particularly dangerous because they can target a younger people and people who have tried to escape traditional gambling sites. We're talking about shorter turnaround bets, micro markets on literally everything on earth, accessible from everywhere. That shifts the dynamic. The traditional bet on a game model becomes bet on literally almost anything and do it anytime from anywhere. That creates more access, more impulse, more risk, and of course, it's going to result in more damage to those of us like myself who are struggling with a gambling addiction. These systems look and feel like gambling because they are, but they're not classified as it. When you buy a contract expecting an outcome and you lose your stake if you're wrong, it's literally just gambling. It's like picking an outcome on a sports betting app. There is literally no difference. But legally, they get listed as a financial contract like a stock option. And so they can basically get away with whatever they want when it comes to the US gambling market. Regulators are finally catching on. Yeah, the government doesn't move very fast because I knew about all this years ago, but whatever, that's nothing new. They only care now because their tax dollars are at stake. They are now increasingly calling them gambling in state law contexts. For instance, recently the Illinois Gaming Board sent a memo out saying that prediction markets constitute gambling under Illinois' law if they cover sports or non-sports outcomes. So basically everything. Look, the quick turnaround and anytime availability, it increases exposure to impulse wagers. This is exactly what casinos have been preying on when it comes to addiction. These platforms have been inflating the valuation of bet volume to make different outcomes appear to be more popular than they actually are. They're basically creating a giant temptation machine, which is of course influencing the behavior of the gamblers on their platform. The nearly limitless range of events means that it's not just sports or casino-style games. It could be politics, policy, climate change, celebrity death, even Dancing with the Stars, like I said. Reality TV is going to be something bet on all the time. So that massively increases the pool of possible gamblers, as it's not just sports fans or casino players anymore. It's anyone who exists that wants to risk their money on their favorite niche hobby or interest. The illusion of control and information advantage can create something like the gambler's fallacy all the time for everyone who's making a bet on something, because they think the more they know about something, the better chance they have to win, when that's not actually true. This is especially important for the younger people out there and those who are already vulnerable to gambling addiction. This brings up the question, who is at the biggest risk here? Firstly, young people who are digital native and they're comfortable with trading apps like Robinhood. Well, many see these markets not as betting, but as trading, because they're literally on Robinhood. which sounds a lot more intellectual, of course, when in reality it's just an excuse to gamble. But, oh, I'm investing, I'm on an investment platform. Secondly, people who have self-excluded from traditional sportsbooks or casinos may not realize that prediction markets might fall outside of the same control environment they've set up for themselves. Or they may believe that these are safer options. They're not gambling, they're different, and that's a false narrative. Additionally, they may realize exactly what they're getting into, but now have even more access to gambling to tempt them to come back from their recovery. From an awareness perspective, if you're working with clinicians, treatment providers, or policymakers, prediction markets absolutely need to be included in your risk audit. Do clients know that these exist? Do they treat them like stock apps or like casino apps? Are interventions and exclusions actually covering these? Can we help people get away from these if they want to quit? Basically, it's just more fuel for the raging fire that is the gambling addiction epidemic in this country. It is absolutely terrible. Regulation is, of course, messy and, of course, lagging. The only group getting screwed in the end are those being led to believe that they'll make money gambling. Regulation, in this case, is just fighting over where the tax dollars are going to come from. At the federal level, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, that's a mouthful, the CFTC, is the primary regulator of many prediction market contracts, not the traditional state gambling commissions. That adds even more complexity. Who is in charge of shutting down this gambling operation that's not considered gambling? Because the classification is ambiguous, trading versus gambling, futures versus bets, many people that are participating might not recognize what they're actually engaging with. This lack of clarity means that harm prevention rules, age limits, self-exclusion schemes, and those responsible advertising standards may not apply or be weaker than the garbage that we currently have now. Who would have thought that it could get worse than telling people to gamble responsibly or call us if they have a gambling problem? The bar for protecting gamblers in this country was already in hell, and these markets are aiming for the Earth's core. Another concern: manipulation, liquidity issues, insider information. One article flagged that prediction markets could become breeding grounds for insider trading. For treatment providers and state councils on problem gambling, the takeaway is this. This is uncharted territory. We're gonna need new policies, new screening questions, new awareness campaigns that explicitly mention prediction markets. We can't just assume that people will recognize this as gambling when the law isn't recognizing it as gambling. Now let's examine how the industry is shifting and how prediction markets are entering mainstream channels. Many major platforms are partnering with or founding their own prediction market firms. This means that the same apps that people use for sports betting or trading could now add prediction market features because they weren't addictive enough already. An example is, of course, DraftKings. They are everywhere, aren't they? They're acquiring Railbird to launch prediction market event contracts on platform. Another angle is that the line between betting on a game and betting on outcome contracts is narrowing, if there was ever a gap to begin with. The apps emphasize speed, novelty, low stakes, and micro engagement. These features appeal to people who might not identify as traditional gamblers. And the more people that do get involved in gambling, the more people will develop a gambling addiction. And it's going to cause maybe even more harm because the marketers are going to pitch them as just trading, just speculation, rather than betting. They're never going to call it betting, and if they do, it's only so that they can appeal to markets where they're supposed to be illegal to sports bet. But not referring to it as betting might lower the perceived risk to the player that's in fact just literally gambling, but might not realize it. And that matters because people entering the new marketplace may skip or ignore warning signs of a gambling addiction that they could be developing. And it really means that people working to help those struggling with gambling harm need to not only track traditional casino bets and have conversations about them, but also these newer formats, apps, contracts, outcomes. The same tactics used in gambling promotion, like the free bets, the rollover offers, the gamified UI design, they're all gonna show up here, if not inflated. So what do we do about it? In intake assessments, clinicians and counselors need to explicitly ask people about prediction market participation. Do you trade or bet on event outcome markets? Have you used XYZ app that lets you bet on policy elections or outcomes or micro markets? Make it really specific so that people understand that they're gambling, which is the next step. We need to educate people about how prediction markets are structurally similar to gambling. There's a wager, there's risk, there's loss, there's cognitive distortions, because many gamblers may not realize the risk category they're in. Next is self-exclusion and blocking. We have tools like Gamban, who's one of the sponsors here on the channel. These can be extended to cover these apps and contract markets. Next, we can encourage people trying to quit gambling to block not just sportsbook apps, but also any app that offers event contracts. And we need to recognize that someone who's self-excluded from sports betting might think, I'll trade these prediction market contracts because that's different. Or maybe they just have a gambling urge and they realize that they still have access through this channel. We have to be counseling people and helping them to make plans ahead of time for what they are going to do if they get an urge to gamble in that situation, because they very well might. Ultimately, recovery is about understanding risk and exposure. Prediction markets may be a new front line for gambling harm. If you're someone struggling, if you find yourself drawn to apps that let you bet on these contracts, bet on everything, literally everything, and you're doing it more than you planned, it could be time to stop and reflect. The moment that I realized that I had a gambling addiction is when I finally stopped and I finally asked myself, why did you just do that after I gambled away a bunch of money? And realizing that I no longer had a good answer to that question. Reach out for help. Your local problem gambling helpline, your clinician, your support group. These are not just benign investments. These can trigger the same exact patterns of loss chasing, concealment, and guilt as traditional gambling. The gambling landscape is changing. Awareness today can mean prevention tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it interesting, then you might like this video about LJ's gambling addiction story. Let's keep getting better together, one day at a time.